Emma Clark stepped off the van and felt the sharp Colorado air brush against her skin. The company retreat was supposed to be fun, relaxing, a break from deadlines and crowded meetings. But Emma wasn't here for joy. She came because she didn't want anyone asking why she stayed behind. She had spent the last few weeks feeling overwhelmed, too many emotions, too many thoughts she didn't know how to control. And deep inside those thoughts lived one name she kept avoiding. Ethan Miller. Ethan was already helping unload bags from the back of the van, smiling politely at their co-workers. His smile was warm, the kind that made people feel safe. Emma noticed how easily he made people laugh, how he moved with calm confidence. She had known him for a year long enough to recognize the way her heartbeat changed every time he stood too close. But she never let herself think about him that way. They worked together. They shared responsibilities. They were supposed to stay in the safe zone of friendship. And yet, something unspoken always sat between them, like a quiet truth neither dared to acknowledge. The campsite was more beautiful than anyone expected. Tall pine trees formed a ring around a small clearing. The mountains rose in the distance like silent giants watching over them. The early evening sun painted the sky with gold and soft pink. Their team leader handed out tents and sleeping bags, explaining the simple rules for the weekend. Everyone moved quickly, excited to set up their tents before the temperature dropped. But something went wrong almost. Immediately, 2 tents had broken poles. One tent had a ripped base from last year's trip, and the extra tent in the storage bin was missing. The leader apologized, but the problem remained. They didn't have enough tents for everyone. As people sorted themselves into pairs. Emma tried to stay calm. She told herself it didn't matter who she ended up with. It was just one night. One tent. Nothing dramatic. But Ethan and Emma were the last 2 standing. Everyone looked at them with playful smiles. A few co-workers made soft jokes, nothing rude, just teasing. "You two will be fine," someone said cheerfully. "It's a big tent." Emma forced a small smile, hoping it didn't look as uncomfortable as it felt. She didn't want anyone to see how her nerves tightened. She didn't want anyone guessing that this situation touched something she kept buried. Ethan walked toward her with his bag slung over his shoulder. His voice was gentle, as if he already sensed her tension. "If you're uncomfortable, I can sleep outside in the common cabin." "I don't mind." "No," Emma said quickly. "It's okay. Really. We're adults. It's one night." Her voice sounded steadier than she felt. He nodded, accepting her answer, but his eyes lingered just a moment too long, just enough for her to feel it. That warm, almost worried look he gave her felt like a soft tug inside her chest. They carried their bags to the open field and began setting up the tent. The air grew colder, pushing them to work faster. Emma held one pole while Ethan anchored the other side. They moved with quiet coordination, both trying not to draw attention to their unspoken history. Their shoulders brushed once, and Emma stepped back too quickly, pretending she needed more space. Ethan noticed but didn't say anything. Inside, Emma's thoughts raced. She remembered all the moments she had avoided him, the lunches she skipped, the times she changed the subject when he grew too honest, the late evenings at work when she pretended she wasn't watching him from across the room. She didn't run because she disliked him. She ran because everything about him felt too sincere, too close, too dangerous in a way she couldn't explain. Once the tent was finally set up, Ethan stepped back and exhaled. "We did it," he said with a soft smile. Emma nodded, pretending the simple task hadn't left her heart unsteady. The group gathered around the fire pit afterward, roasting marshmallows and trading stories. The flames glowed bright orange and laughter filled the air. Everyone seemed relaxed except Emma, who couldn't shake the awareness of the tent behind her. Their tent. Ethan sat across from her, listening to a co-worker joke about past trips. Every few minutes his eyes drifted toward Emma, as if checking whether she was okay. She tried to act natural, nodding, smiling lightly, keeping her eyes on the fire. But the warmth of the flames did nothing to steady the calm he brought. Out of her all the fear she felt. When she thought about being alone with him. Later that night, as the sky turned dark and stars scattered across the night, people slowly returned to their tents. Some were tired, some wanted quiet, some wanted to talk in small groups. Emma stood up last, unsure if she was delaying or preparing herself. Ethan waited for her at the path leading back to their tent. He didn't rush her. He didn't pressure her. He just stood there with that same gentle patience he always showed her. "Ready?" he asked softly. Emma inhaled deeply. "Yeah, I'm ready." She wasn't, but she walked with him anyway. The night was cold, the path quiet, and the tent felt like a small world waiting for answers they had both avoided for far too long. The tent felt warmer than Emma expected when she stepped inside, even though the air outside had turned colder. A small lantern hanging from the center cast a soft golden glow that made the space feel closer, quieter, almost too intimate. She placed her backpack on one side while Ethan moved around carefully, giving her space without making it obvious. His calmness made her even more aware of her own restless heartbeat. Ethan zipped the entrance to block the cold wind. "The temperature dropped faster than the forecast," he said, trying to make things light. Emma nodded, pulling her blanket tighter around her shoulders. She sat on one side of the tent, her legs crossed, pretending to adjust the corner of her sleeping bag. Ethan sat across from her, leaning back slightly, his hands resting on his knees. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Outside, the wind rushed through the trees, making the tent gently shake. Inside, the silence stretched, filled with things neither of them had dared to say for months. Finally, Ethan tried again. "Are you comfortable? If anything feels weird, just tell me." "I'm fine," Emma answered quickly. The words came out a little too fast. She cleared her throat. "Really, I'm okay." But she wasn't. Not because she felt unsafe. Ethan was the last person who would ever make her feel that way, but because she felt too seen. Too close to truths she wasn't ready to admit. To ease the tension, Ethan asked about her week, about a project they both worked on. Emma answered in short sentences at first, but soon the conversation began to warm. They talked about music they liked, places they wanted to travel someday, old memories from childhood that shaped them. Their voices filled the tent with a gentle rhythm, carried by the lantern light and the soft rustle of their blankets. As they talked, Emma felt herself relaxing. She didn't realize how much she needed this someone who listened without judging. Someone who understood the quiet parts of her she rarely showed. At one point, Ethan shared a story about messing up a presentation years ago. He laughed at his own embarrassment, rubbing the back of his neck. The laughter made his eyes soften, and Emma caught herself watching him a little too long. When he noticed her smile, he chuckled. "What? I know it was terrible." "No, it's just—" She paused. "I don't think I've ever heard you talk about failing at anything. You always seem so put together." Ethan shook his head. "Trust me. I'm not perfect. I just try to stay calm." "You're good at it," she said quietly. Her voice held more truth than she intended, and Ethan heard it. He didn't comment, but she saw a new warmth in his expression, something gentle but deep. A sudden gust of wind slammed against the tent, making Emma jump. The cold air seeped in through a tiny gap near the zipper. She shivered, pulling the blanket tighter around herself. Without thinking, Ethan reached for his jacket. He walked over and draped it over her shoulders. His hands didn't linger, but the moment felt heavier than something simple. Emma froze slightly, stunned by the quiet care in his gesture. "You don't have to do that," she whispered. "I know," he replied softly. "But you're cold." Their eyes met. This time, Emma didn't look away immediately. Something fragile and honest passed between them, something that felt like the beginning of a truth they had both avoided. But Emma broke the moment first. She shifted, adjusting the jacket as if she needed to look busy. She didn't trust herself to stay still under that soft, unspoken connection. Ethan returned to his side of the tent, but his expression stayed thoughtful. Minutes passed. Their conversation drifted again, slower now, deeper. Emma found herself sharing worries she usually kept hidden. How work had been overwhelming, how she felt lost lately, how she pretended to be stronger than she actually was. She didn't know why she said it, but once she began, her words kept coming. Ethan listened without interrupting. When she stopped, he spoke gently. "You don't always have to carry everything alone, Emma. You deserve people who support you." His voice was calm, but the truth inside it shook her. She looked down at her hands, feeling a warmth build in her chest. No one had said something like that to her in a long time. Another strong wind passed outside, and the lantern flickered. The temperature dropped even more, making the tent feel smaller and cozier by comparison. Emma shifted closer to the lantern for warmth, and Ethan noticed. "You can come closer to the center," he said softly. "It's warmer here." Emma hesitated, then moved a little, keeping a comfortable distance between them. But even that small closeness made the air feel different. She could hear Ethan's calm breathing, feel the quiet presence he carried as the night deepened. The world outside faded into darkness and cold. Inside the tent, the conversation softened. Their voices grew lower, more vulnerable. Emma didn't know what surprised her, more the things she told him, or the things he understood without her needing to say. She realized then that the space between them was not empty. It was full of everything they had avoided for too long. And just when she felt almost comfortable with the new closeness, Ethan's voice broke the quiet. "Emma," he said gently, "can I ask you something important?" Her heart tightened. "Okay, ask." He looked at her with a seriousness she had never seen in his eyes before. "Why do you keep pulling away from me?" Emma felt the air inside the tent shift. The night didn't feel simple anymore. Something deeper had begun. The lantern inside the tent flickered, casting soft shadows on the fabric walls. Emma sat frozen, Ethan's question hanging in the air like a weight she didn't know how to carry. His voice had not been angry or sharp, just honest in a way that made her heart tremble. "Why do you keep pulling away from me?" he repeated, quieter this time. Emma opened her mouth, but no words came. She looked down at her hands, trying to steady her breathing. The wind outside howled, pushing the tent slightly inward, but the storm inside her felt louder. "I'm not pulling away," she finally said, though even she didn't believe the words. Ethan shook his head gently. "Emma, you run from me every time I try to get close. You disappear when I try to talk. And when I look at you, you turn away like I've done something wrong." His voice softened. "I just want to understand." His calmness made it harder to hide. He wasn't accusing her. He wasn't frustrated. He simply cared. And that care was the thing she had been afraid to face for months. Emma swallowed hard. "It's not you," she said quietly. "You've never done anything wrong. Then what is it?" he asked. The lantern made his eyes glow with a gentle warmth that felt too honest, too steady. She felt exposed under that softness. It wasn't romantic pressure. It wasn't anything inappropriate. It was just truth, simple, deep truth. Emma's voice finally cracked. "I didn't want to ruin what we have." Ethan leaned slightly forward, listening with his full attention. She could feel it. and it made her chest tighten even more. "I like being around you," she continued. "I trust you. I rely on you. And that scared me because I didn't know if you felt the same." Her eyes lifted slowly. "I didn't want to lose you." Ethan let out a breath he had been holding. In the dim light, she saw something soften in him, something that looked like relief mixed with emotion he had tried to hide. "You wouldn't lose me," he said gently. "Not even if things got complicated. Not even if you didn't feel the same way I do." Emma's heart skipped. "The same way you do." Ethan hesitated for the first time that night. His voice was quieter now, more uncertain. "I've liked you for a long time, Emma. Probably longer than I should have." He rubbed his palms together nervously. "I just never said anything because I didn't want to put pressure on you. You always looked like you were carrying more than you admitted." Emma felt tears sting her eyes. Not painful tears, just a sudden rush of emotion she had kept locked away. Ethan had always been steady, always gentle, always patient. She had sensed something in him but never trusted her own feelings enough to believe it. The wind outside grew louder as clouds thickened over the campsite. A distant rumble of thunder shook the sky, but the tent felt still like they were in a world that had stopped moving. Ethan continued, his voice steady. "Every time I tried to get closer, I thought maybe you didn't want me to. So I stepped back. That wasn't what I wanted," Emma whispered. "Then tell me what you want," he said softly. The simplicity of the question broke her. She wiped a tear quickly, embarrassed, but Ethan didn't move, didn't push, didn't react with anything but understanding. Emma took a slow breath. "I want to stop pretending." Those words hung between them, heavy with meaning. She didn't explain further. She didn't need to. Ethan understood. He shifted slightly closer, not touching her, just shortening the distance enough for her to feel his warmth. The space between them felt smaller, gentler, safer. Emma's voice grew steadier as she continued. "I pulled away because I knew how strong my feelings were, and I didn't know what to do with them." Ethan nodded. "You don't have to decide everything tonight." "I know," she whispered. "But for the first time, I want to stop hiding." Thunder boomed again. Closer now. The first drops of rain hit the fabric, soft but sharp enough to be heard. The lantern flickered again, casting moving shadows that made everything feel more dramatic, more intense. Ethan watched her closely. "I've been waiting for you to look at me the way you're looking at me right now." Emma didn't look away this time. The honesty in his expression pulled her in. The dark, the rain, the quiet, all of it wrapped around the moment, making it feel deeper than anything they had shared before. The rain grew stronger, pattering against the tent in a steady rhythm. Emma hugged the jacket he had given her earlier. It still held his warmth, and it made her feel strangely safe. Inside the tent, the air felt thick, like every breath carried something unspoken. However, none of it crossed the line. There was no pressure, no expectation, only the closeness of two people who finally admitted what they had been afraid to say. Ethan moved one hand slightly, as if he wanted to reach toward her, but wanted her permission first. "If you ever want to talk about this again," he said gently, "I'm here." Emma nodded. "I know. And if you ever want to figure out what this really is," he added softly, "we can do that too. Together." The word together hit her deeper than she expected. Outside, the rain turned into a small storm, drumming against the tent. Inside, Emma felt something inside her settle, a truth she had carried for months, now finally spoken aloud. She lifted her eyes to meet his again, and for the first time, she didn't look away. The storm outside may have been loud, but the change between them was louder, quiet, emotional, but impossible to ignore. The storm outside grew heavier, as night settled deeper around the campsite. Rain hit the tent in strong bursts, and thunder rolled across the sky like distant drums. Inside, the space felt warm and quiet, but the emotions between Emma and Ethan had shifted into something neither of them expected. When they arrived that morning, Emma sat closer to the center of the tent now, hugging Ethan's jacket around her shoulders. She didn't know if it was the cold or the conversation that made her hands shake slightly. Ethan moved calmly, adjusting the lantern to make the light brighter, then sat beside her, not too close, not too far, just in a space that felt safe. The thunder rumbled again, and Emma leaned a little toward him without meaning to. The sound startled her more than she expected. Ethan noticed immediately. "You okay?" he asked softly. "Yeah," she said, but her voice came out small. Ethan didn't touch her, but his presence felt grounding. He sat quietly, waiting to see if she needed him to move closer. His patience made her chest tighten again, the same way it always did when he treated her with quiet care. The tent shook slightly with the wind. Emma sighed. "I didn't think tonight would turn out like this." Ethan smiled gently. "Neither did I. It was supposed to be a simple trip," she said, a little laugh escaping her. "Just camping. Team bonding. Nothing emotional." He nodded. "But sometimes things happen when you stop running from them." Emma paused. The truth in his words settled into the space between them. She realized how tired she was from constantly pushing her feelings down. For once, she didn't want to pretend outside. The rain softened for a moment, the drops falling in a lighter rhythm. The lantern light made shadows sway gently, creating a calm, warm atmosphere around them. Emma spoke again, her voice quiet but steady. "I've been scared for so long. Not of you, just of letting myself feel something real." Ethan turned slightly toward her. "You don't have to rush anything. We can take this one step at a time." "I know," she whispered. "But right now, this feels right." A soft silence fell. Not uncomfortable, just full of meaning that didn't need words. The world outside was messy and cold, but inside, everything felt slow and honest. When another cold wave of air slipped through the tent seam, Emma shivered. Ethan finally spoke gently. "Come closer. You'll be warmer." She hesitated for a heartbeat, then moved closer until their shoulders brushed lightly. It was a simple touch, nothing more, but it sent a warm, calming feeling through her. She didn't pull away this time. Ethan lifted the edge of the shared blanket, and she slipped under it without needing instruction. The warmth settled around them, quiet and steady. "This wasn't part of the plan," she whispered. "No," Ethan agreed. "But not everything good is planned." The closeness didn't feel overwhelming anymore. It felt peaceful, like finally letting herself breathe after holding back for too long. Emma rested her head gently on his shoulder, testing the moment. Ethan didn't move or tense. He simply accepted it, as if he had known she might do this eventually. His voice was soft when he spoke again. "I want to be someone you don't have to pretend around." "You already are," she replied. The lantern glowed warm, and the sound of the rain became softer, turning into a calm background rhythm. Emma had never felt so aware of someone's presence before, not in a dramatic or heavy way, but in a quiet, meaningful way that made her feel understood. "This feels different," she said after a long pause. "It does," Ethan agreed. "But in a good way," she added quickly. He nodded. "A very good way." Thunder rolled again, but Emma didn't jump this time. She felt too held, too grounded in the moment to be startled. Her eyes grew heavy as the warmth and silence settled deeper around them. Ethan noticed. "You're tired," he said softly. "A little," she admitted. "Get some rest," he whispered. "I'll stay right here." His voice carried comfort, not expectation. Emma relaxed against him, letting herself trust someone fully for the first time in a long while. She didn't worry about tomorrow or the questions waiting outside the tent. She didn't think about work or what their co-workers might say. All she cared about was the safety of the moment and the steady rhythm of Ethan's breathing next to her. Before closing her eyes, she lifted her head slightly to look at him. His expression was calm, thoughtful, almost protective in a quiet way. "Ethan," she said. "Yeah? Thank you. For tonight. For listening. For everything." He smiled softly. "You don't have to thank me. I care about you, Emma. I always have." Her heart swelled at the gentleness in his tone. She lowered her head back onto his shoulder, letting the truth settle into her. It didn't feel scary anymore. It felt warm, steady, real. As the storm outside finally began to fade, Emma drifted into sleep, wrapped in the warmth of the shared blanket and the comfort of someone who had always been there, waiting patiently for the moment she finally let him in. Ethan stayed awake a little longer, watching the lantern flicker. He whispered quietly, almost to himself, "Whatever this becomes, we'll figure it out. Together." And in the calm glow of the tent, with the rain easing into silence, something new between them finally took its first peaceful breath.